Well, good day to you. It is May the 13th, and I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you are. And it is okay if you're hearing this on a day other than the 13th of May. I'm a poet and I don't know it, because I hope you have a great day as well. Now, if this is your first time ever listening to Search for Signs, no, I do not quote poetry all the time, just today. But what do we talk about? Well, we talk about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. We talk about why are the Masters returning now? Why is it important that they do so? And really, most importantly, what does it mean for you? I am smart enough to know, I might look dumb, but I'm smart enough to know that I've turned off a lot of people by just saying what I just said. Now, you might think I've totally fallen out of my tree. You might even be quite alarmed about what I said. That's okay. I'm not trying to change your beliefs. We're just talking here, okay? You don't have to get all riled up about it, because I'm really just presenting this information for you to consider for yourself. And it's for each one of us to look at this for ourselves. Now, hopefully, I will be honest, hopefully you will take the time to look at the description of these videos, click on a link or two, do some background research, and one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to say, yeah, there's some truth to this, or B, there's no truth to this at all. And either outcome is totally fine for me, because you have actually done more than most people would do in this situation. Then most people just turn it off. But at least you had an open mind enough to do it. And, I'm not asking you for any money, and those links don't cost you any money, so you're not at anything other than just a little bit of time. But the most important thing that I think that we can look at, okay, now, it doesn't matter whether you're Christian, Buddhist, atheist, agnostic, just a regular spiritual person, or Jewish. Doesn't matter. Wherever you find yourself in the spectrum of spiritual life, the most important thing that we could look at for ourselves, inquire about, talk about even, intuit, try to put in practice and fail, and try again to put in practice and fail, and hopefully one day help to manifest, globally, is the truth that we are one. Now, it's hard only because we've been taught from the cradle that we are not one, that we are separate. But the truth lies within your heart, just like it lies within mine, Jesus's, Maitreyas, the Buddha's, Leonardo da Vinci's. It doesn't matter. The truth of the matter is that the truth of that oneness lies within the hearts of all of us. So we just have to be reminded of it, really. But hopefully, humanity will take a turn for the better and start to treat each other as one. Now, I think, and this is something you might not really consider. I'm sure you've heard about that term that we're one, but I'm sure you haven't really thought about it like this, that there's actually evidence that we are in fact one. Okay, now it's coming in two different ways. And just like all in life, it's actually quite different from each other. The first are the many miracle signs that have been going on. You might be aware of it, you might not. I have links in the description. You can see what I'm saying is true. They've been happening to all over the world, all walks of life, every religious group, people of no religious faith are having these miracles. And you can see some of them for yourself. You can see images, perhaps videos. You can Google it. There's some on YouTube even you can find. But healing waters, crosses of light, images of the Madonna, weeping icons, the Hindu milk miracle, UFO sightings, people being saved by accidents from angels is just a very tiny list that I can rattle off here in a 30-minute video about the miracles that have been going on. And they're happening, like I said, to every single religious group. You can see that for yourself, and also people of no particular religious faith. And it would be true to say that these people are being left with a greater sense of hope. Maybe an expectancy of the future, perhaps, but definitely hope for the future, And because, and this is important to realize, okay, because the hope is happening, has been given to everybody and not just one particular religious group, it could be said, and I think it is true to say, that the hope for mankind is for all mankind, which is another way of saying we are one. Now, if you deny the miracles are miracles, okay, if you do your own research and you look at this, you can't help but at least go, there's something strange happening here, because this stuff just doesn't happen every day. But I don't think it's a miracle, and that's fine. This other teacher that's teaching us that we are one is a lot easier to believe because we are all faced with it on a daily basis. It's the problems that are facing humanity. Now, each one of us, without exception, have our own personal problems, family problems perhaps, work-related problems, that kind of stuff. We got a lot of drama going on in our life. And alongside that, I'm sure all of us have heard at least once about some of the problems that are facing humanity, like the environment, political instability, political divisions, economic instability, economic divisions, natural disasters, war, crime, starvation, the environment of all things. In every case, these global problems are teaching humanity that we are one because they're happening to everyone, especially the environment. It's happening to every single person on this planet, and it's affecting all of us. Now, you might deny climate change because that's the big topic on the mouths of everybody that wants ecological change, right, and justice and to save the environment is the climate change. You might deny it, right? You might also deny what I've been saying along with Maitreya and others, that nuclear radiation is the biggest killer on the planet. You might deny that because you can't see it, you can't feel it, smell it, hear it, or touch it, therefore it's not non-existent, right? Well, let's take it a step further. What about all the other pollution that's in your face, right? You can't deny that, right? I mean, if you live in a major city, just go on the hilltop of any major city and you will see just how clean the air is that you've been breathing all this time. And if you are unaware of it, go to the lakes and the streams and the rivers in your area and just see how clean the rivers are and see if you can actually just stick a glass in there and drink it, and not get totally sick or even die from it, right? This is the air that we're breathing. This is the water that we're drinking. The pollution affects the food that we are eating. We're all being affected by this pollution. And it's all making us sick. And if it goes on much longer, it'll be too late, and then it will affect all of us quite disastrously. And it won't matter where you live. It won't matter whether you're a man or a woman. It won't matter what the color of your skin is, what the language that you speak, how much money you have in the bank account, whether you're homeless or you live in a Bel Air mansion. You are being affected by these problems. We're causing the problems together. We are the solutions to solving these problems together. And it's going to take every single one of us in every case all around the world to solve these problems. It can't just be one or two people. It can't just be one or two nations. It even can't be one or two continents doing it and the other one's not doing it. We all have to do something to solve the environmental problem, the injustice problem, the problem of lack of freedom, everything. We have to together solve these problems. And here is the $64 probably $1 million question now because of inflation is, can humanity come together in time to solve these problems? That is the question, right? But if it's becoming very, very desperate, it's still telling us we're one people. We can do it. There's always time. And I would say, to that answer to that question, can humanity come together in time? Because I've experienced these miracles, I've seen these miracles firsthand, I know them to be true. I would say that because these miracles are going on in a world that seems like it's not going to go on much longer, that we are actually going to get it in time. Because I don't think those miracles would be put there if it wasn't the case. So there is hope. And there's also hope within the problem. Now, here's the other thing too. Okay, now, I know, like I said, I probably turned you off by what I said about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. That's fine. But just hear me out for just 1 second, okay? Because every religion is expecting the teacher to come back. They're all expecting him to look a certain way, come back at a certain time, perhaps, or whatever. But little do we all know that there was events that have happened over the past few decades that we are quite unaware of, okay? Now, for most of us, the knowledge of the Masters of Wisdom, the knowledge of us as souls even, the knowledge of us that there's a kingdom above humanity called the Masters of Wisdom, has long been forgotten. And we've been educated since the cradle to believe whatever we believe about life, about the world. Maybe it's flat, maybe it's round, don't know. Maybe there's life on other planets, we don't know. What happens after we die. We've all been left just in a quandary about what is the truth of all these things, Now, eons ago, it was common knowledge that we were souls. It was common knowledge that there was life on other planets. There was common knowledge that we had divine help called the Masters of Wisdom that were here helping and aiding, guiding humanity directly. They were in the public eye. They protected us, they stimulated us, they guided and taught us at the time, and so forth. But if I had to explain this event, it would be a little too long of a video. But they chose about 100,000 years ago that the best thing for humanity would be for them to retreat to the remote areas of the world, like the Rockies, the Andes, especially the Himalayas, the Gobi Desert, and so forth, and have not forgotten about humanity, have not ignored humanity, but guided us indirectly through their disciples in the world. The men and women of history who have made an impact in whatever arena it was, whether it was politics, education, science, whether they invented something, the arts even, those kind of things, religious, were all working with these masters of wisdom, whether they knew it or not. Most of them didn't know it, but some of them did. And it's brought us to the point where we're at today. Now, it doesn't seem like we've gone very far, but we have gone a long way as a people, and we were on our way, believe it or not. Now, there was a time when these masters knew that they would have to come back at some point. It was hoped that it would be another 1,000 or so years before that would be able to do that. But they had to come far sooner because humanity developed the atomic bomb and could destroy ourselves if they didn't come back themselves to help. So they decided it would be best for them to come back. In the mid-70s, 5 of these masters who had been living in their ancient retreats entered 5 major cities: New York, London, Geneva, Darjeeling, and Tokyo, and have been living there ever since. They're not known as masters. They're not teaching humanity directly right now. They're just in those cities in some way, shape, or form. And then 2 more masters. One went into Rome and one went into Moscow. The one in Rome was the master who was Jesus. We'll talk about him we've talked about him in other videos, but we'll talk about Jesus' role in the future in other videos too. But anyway, and then the head and leader of this group, this very, very tiny group of Masters of Wisdom, entered London on July 19th, 1977. Now, if you were alive during the 70s, I challenge you to remember that day, because you probably didn't, right? In fact, it's funny, I'm a student of human nature, and I love history. And one of the most iconic yet ironic statements of history was King George of England during the Revolutionary War. He wrote in his journal on July 4th, 1776, when the United States declared their independence from England and became the United States, he wrote in his journal, "Nothing of note happened today." So I'm sure if you were alive during that time of July 19th, 1977, and you were very diligent about writing in diaries and so forth and journals, you probably wrote on July 19th, nothing really happened today, except the one awaited by all the world's religions and has been awaited by all the world's religions for eons entered the world. Now, there wasn't much fanfare. In fact, there wasn't any. There wasn't any media coverage. The teacher entered the world the same way he promised the Christians, like a thief in the night in an hour when you least expect it. And he did just that. And since then, has even made it onto TV in the same kind of international fanfare and circus that he did when he entered London on July 19th, 1977, which means there's no media coverage of him speaking on TV because he's not claiming to be a Messiah figure. He is just presenting himself like one of us. Now, I want to say I typically, at this point, love to answer questions. There wasn't any questions that came my way. Hopefully in the next video, I'll be able to answer some questions that you guys have. You can post your questions in the comment section of this video or other videos, and I'll find it, and I can answer it that way. You can email me at searchforscience@mail.com even. And if you like I said, just do your own research by looking at the links in the descriptions. But in this video, I want to give a commentary on economics and politics. I'm not a spiritual guru, but I do consider myself to be an amateur political pundit. Just ask the people in my life. But I want to start it off by kind of tying it into this story. You know, this is incredible information. You might not agree with it now, but you'll see in time that how extraordinary of a time you're living in. But Maitreya, when he entered London, did not just, that wasn't it. I mean, he had been working behind the scenes, working with Benjamin Creme to try to get the information that he's out, try to get his teachings out there, like without sharing there could be no justice, without justice there could be no peace, without peace there could be no future. So he's laid out some of his teachings to humanity in a preliminary way through Share International magazine. He did that for like 4 decades. Now, he did make some predictions, and these predictions have really been coming true. A lot of them have come true, but one of them is still in the process right at this moment in time, which is the economic collapse that Maitreya predicted. But he gave his predictions to an associate of his in the Asian community of London who had talked to Benjamin Creme of Share International magazine and had him published in Share International magazine. You can see it for yourself, the time that they were published. It was before they actually happened, and then the event happened. Now, Maitreya says he's not a soothsayer, he's not an oracle. He just saw the cause and the effect of humanity's actions causing these things to happen. So he predicted the fall of the Berlin Wall and the ending of the Cold War, long before it happened. He predicted the ending of apartheid long before it happened, the coming together of South Africa and the release of Nelson Mandela. He predicted the political demise of George Herbert Walker Bush, the first Bush, when he was at a 93% approval rating, and predicted that he would lose the next election to a Democrat, which happened, right? Now that the Democratic part wasn't much of a prediction because we only have a 2-party system in this country. But anyway, and then the third one the fourth prediction, major prediction that he predicted, that is in the process of coming true, you may not see it, but it's actually been happening for quite some time, is the economic crash that we've been living in for decades. Now, when he made that prediction, he said that it would start in Japan and would start to affect the other markets around the world. And at the time that he made this prediction that the Japanese stock market would actually crash, the Nikkei, which is their version of the Dow, was at its all-time high. And then it actually went down and down and down not long after he made this prediction, to the point where, by any economist's view, it crashed because it lost like 60 or 75% of its value, whatever it was. I mean, it lost a lot of value. And now it's kind of going back up a little bit, but it did tank. And he said there would be a lot of corruption that would be released, and like I said, it would affect the other markets. And in October of 1987, we had Black Monday here in the United States. Now, I remember that. You probably, if you were alive then and old enough, you remember it too. And I remember talking to my economics teacher, Can't remember her name, but I remember when this happened, she was quite concerned that it would lead to another Great Depression because we lost over 500 points, which doesn't seem like much now, but back then the Dow was at a smaller point rate. So we lost like over 20-something% in value in one day. I mean, a huge point loss in one day, relatively speaking. I mean, today it would be the equivalent of what? That's at 35, so about 7,000 or 8,000 points in one day. I mean, massive point loss. People lost their shirts on that day. Other people made a lot of money, but anyway. And then she was thinking, just like with the Great Depression, about a year and a half after the stock market crash of the 20s, there was massive layoffs and all that soup lines and all that kind of stuff. Well, that never really happened, right? But it did rock the economic foundations of the economic structures for sure. And there was, I think, a crack that was put in the foundation of it. And the powers that be have been trying their best to spackle it and keep it together, but it's shaking and shaky. It's on very, very shaky ground. And it's been like this ever since the late 80s, really. Now, during the 90s, I'm going to give you a little history lesson if you're not old enough to remember this. More and more people started putting their money into the stock market. Back prior to the 90s, it was basically accredited investors that invested in the stock market and a few 401ks that people had, maybe Roths or IRAs or something. But for the most part, the man on the street, the blue-collar worker, didn't put their money in the stock market. They just saved their money or some other kind of investment. But then more and more people started putting their money in the stock market. People that didn't know much about the stock market, they just knew that there was a possibility that they could make more money than they could by just leaving it in a savings account, right? So billions of dollars started getting into it, right? And really, the market diverged from what was going on in Main Street life. It was getting harder and harder for people to make out a living, but yet the market kept getting higher and higher and higher. And there are other events that happened, like the dot-com bubble that caused the market to go down and so forth. And if you also remember, from the year 2000 to right before the last downturn in the economy, as they like to put it, it was like this wave. It was kind of the market was kind of going sideways, and then it would just drop 5 or 10 points, and then it would go up, and then it would go for a little while, and then it would drop 5 or 10 points, and then it would go up, and then it would go down, drop 5 or 10 points. And people who had heard this information about Maitreya's prediction were all thinking that every time it would drop, that was it. It was going to go down, right? But it would always go back up. And it did this for a good time, right? Again, it was still getting harder and harder and harder for people in the United States, for instance, and around the world to make a living. You had to get a second job a lot of times, but the market was doing just fine, right? It was totally blind to what was really going on in the world. And then in 2008, the stock market went down. And I'll never forget this. I was watching TV when it happened, and they were talking about this huge point loss. I can't remember how much it was, maybe 5 or 10 points. Which was pretty significant, And I remember thinking to myself, well, it's going to go back up tomorrow. And I turned the TV off. And then I turned the TV on again, and it was red candles all the way down even more. And I was like, wait a minute, it normally goes back up at this time. And then it went down even more. And then it went down even more. And then it went down even more, and down even more, and down even more. And Benjamin Creme's master said in some of his articles in Share International that it was hoped that the market would just keep going down to where it eventually would collapse, because humanity is totally enamored with making profits. And that's what's keeping the environment sick. It's keeping injustice in the world. It's causing the starvation. It's causing all the ills of the world is caused by blind people following commercialized blind markets, really is what it is. And until we stop doing that, we'll still continue to have the world that we have, which is not very good for so many people, right? Is it good for you? Maybe, but for the most of us, it's not. And he also said that if the powers that be could prop the stock market back up, that it would go to even higher highs. And what did it do? It started, under the Obama administration, started to go even higher highs, and the economy, quote unquote, started to improve. There was more construction, there was more jobs that came around, and so forth, and people were making more money, and people were making more money with investments. And they always say on these infomercials on YouTube that more and more people are millionaires every year because of it. And of course, that's what happened. But yet, at the same time, they're not talking about more and more people that are suffering because of it. Right? More and more starvation, more and more poverty, more and more environmental problems because of not solving the problems and so forth. But it's okay for a few people who make millions of dollars. That's cool, right? But anyway, but for the most of us, we're all suffering, right? Now, leads me to today, okay? Because we've gone through this roller coaster ride. And to use a roller coaster analogy about where I think we're at right now politically and where I think we're at economically, have you ever ridden on a roller coaster? You go to the theme park, you find your roller coaster ride you like that goes 100 miles per hour or whatever like this, and you can't wait to ride. You wait long lines to get there, right? And you finally it's your turn, right? Your roller coaster pulls up, you get on, you get in the two-car seat or a two-person seat, and the bar comes down over your waist. And I know the thoughts that I always have. You probably have it too. Hopefully the person that designed this roller coaster knew what they were doing. I'm not going to fall out of it. And you put your life in their hands and you just you start going, right? And it starts off kind of slow. And then at some point, it goes up this really steep grade, right? And it's almost like you're going totally vertical. And you hear this chink, 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 chink. You know what I'm talking about? You hear that clink of the roller coaster as it, causes the car to go up and up and higher, higher and higher. And then you start to get above the trees, and then you start to see the skyline of the city that you're in, and then it might go up a couple 100 feet, 300 feet or whatever, and you start to see birds at eye level and so forth, and then it's still making that clinking noise, right? And then you get to the very top, and you can't see what's getting ready to happen, but you know it's going to happen, right? Because you put money down to ride on a roller coaster, right? And all of a sudden, it just gets eerily quiet. And you might hear a few people down a few 100 feet from you talking or laughing or something like this. But for the most part, it's real quiet up there, right? And then the bottom just drops out. I think economically, that's where we're at right now. We're at the very eerily quiet stage as it's about to go whoosh, bam. So I'm not an economist. I don't play one on TV. This is for entertainment purposes only, as they like to say in YouTube videos. But if you think about it, we really are at a very precarious point economically. And the hope is that it will wake all of us up to the fact that we are one, that we can't keep living life like this. Now, Ben's master did say right after 2008, if it does go to a higher high, the fall will even be farther down than it would have been in 2008 had it been allowed just to collapse. And it'll be harder on a lot of other people. A lot of countries that are poorer will feel the effect of it and so forth. So we got that to look forward to, I guess. But in the end, it will wake humanity up to the fact that we are one. And so that's kind of, I think, where we're at economically. Now, why am I saying that? Well, I've started to notice on my job, and it's been coming for some time. And I have a great job. I love my job. The company that I work for is quite successful in what they do. But the things that they were doing before are not working anymore. And they're kind of having a crisis point of, let's say, of not making money, not people wanting to spend money at the place, but people actually wanting to work at the place. It's causing a lot of problems because they're trying to pay them the same amount of money that they paid 5 or 10 years ago that worked then, that isn't working now. They're trying to give them the same amount of hours that they gave, prior to this year or whatever. And people are not wanting to work those hours, those long hours. They want more free time for themselves and so forth. And just like during the housing bust of 2008, when all the banks kind of slept, the people in the banks slept better at night thinking they had this illusion that what happened in history would happen again, where people would do everything they can to keep their house at all cost. Didn't happen. And when people started to lose their jobs, people were thinking that they would do anything they could to keep their house, right? That's what they did back during the Great Depression. People nowadays just went, well, you know what? You can keep that house. I don't really want it anyway. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way the color of the walls, or I didn't like the location or whatever. You can keep it. Here are your keys. And the banks were like, wait, what? No, you weren't supposed to do that. You're like, no, it's fine. You can keep it. I don't really want it anyway. Well, what about your credit? I don't really care about my credit. I'm good. And so all the fear that they thought that would be kept people in line didn't work, right? And it caused the housing market to crash 12 years ago or 13 years ago, right? Well, now is the same thing that's going on in the job market. And this is where my commentary is coming in based on my own personal experiences on this, is people were out of work last year. They kind of got used to it, accustomed to it. They were getting paid perhaps to not work and more money than they were making before. So why go back and work a job that pays less and work these long hours and never get ahead? But even at my job, the people that are unwilling to work now and are calling out a lot or quitting or whatever like this, they're not getting any unemployment for quitting. You don't get unemployment for quitting. You get it when you get fired or laid off, right? You can't get it if you just quit your job. And I've even asked some of these people, what about money? I don't really care. Well, aren't you worried about it? No, not really. Well, why do you not want to work? Well, I just don't feel like working as hard as I was working because I'm not getting ahead. So, that's where we're at right now. How is this going to affect banks, credit card companies, it's going to be a train wreck, and we're already starting to see it, right? Not only in the industry that I'm in, but in other industries I've seen it as well. Restaurant industry, And there was a pharmaceutical company that I was talking to a guy that works there. They're having a hard time finding people at work. That, even in the United States, there's gas shortages here because of the Colonial Pipeline attack, but there's also gas shortages because they can't hire any drivers to drive the trucks for the gas because people don't want to work anymore, right? So it is going to be a train wreck, but it's, I think, a change. We're seeing the shift from the old to the new. It's been about making money at the expense of everything else. And now this generation is waking up to the fact that they don't want that. They want something different than that. They want something new. And it's frightening those people who are trying to hold on to the old order and the old ways of things at all costs. And that had the power, and had instilled the fear that if you lose your job, that's the end of your life as you know it, right? These people are already proving to themselves that they can live without a job, apparently. I can't, but they can, right? So where is this leading us, right? So if you have any comments, post them in the comments section. If you agree with what I'm saying, cool. If not, post it in there too. We can talk about it again in other videos. And then to talk about the politics of things real quick. In the United States, I can't speak for every country, but I know American politics better than any other country because I live here in the United States. You got the right and the conservative wing, the Republicans, fighting for what they think is freedom. I'm not saying that they are fighting for true freedom, but they're fighting for their own thing of freedom. And then you got the left Democratic side, the progressive side, fighting for more social justice, right? And they're all fighting for it in their own way, and it's creating this division politically, and nobody's willing to hear the other person's side of it, and that kind of thing, and we're at each other's throats over this stuff. And they both are really fighting for legitimate divine causes, really, freedom and justice. But the thing that we've failed to realize as of yet is that true freedom comes from true justice, and true justice comes from true freedom. And it's been said that an injustice somewhere is an injustice to everyone, right? So you can't have true justice for just a couple people and not for everybody else. Again, showing us that we are one. Just like you can't have true freedom for just a few people and everyone else living in slavery, whether it's figuratively or literally, mental slavery, mental prison. You can't have any of that without, you can't have true freedom without that either. Everyone has to be free. But what we here in the United States, what we think is free is being able to do whatever you want to do. Well, that's not going to work, right? There's too many people out there. I guess if you had your own planet, that's one thing. But you can't have true justice, right, without some kind of freedom too. Now, the masters will be teaching us, along with Maitreya, will be teaching us that what is true freedom? And this is something I want you to consider after you stop hearing this video, if you listen to this long. What is true freedom for you? Maitreya puts it like this, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's where we live life in simple honesty, very creative. We explore our own divinity. We're aware of who we are as divine, but yet we allow other people to be just as divine. We don't infringe on their free will. We live harmlessly with them. That's true freedom. Freedom to be yourself, freedom to live your life, not freedom to be free from fear of each other and so forth, and live each day as differently as it is from the previous day, right? Creative, joyful. That's true freedom from what Maitreya is going to be teaching us. And it only will happen when all our needs are met through true justice, and that's every single one of us having what we need to live the day. We're not made as souls in incarnation to live meaningless lives with drudgery and factories and, dead-end jobs and stressed out about paying bills. That's not really who we are. And the new time is coming, and we're right at that point, I think. Something to think about, hopefully. Now, I want to end the video now. It's getting a little long, and I always want to end it in a positive way. Now, Maitreya has made some predictions through Benjamin Creme and Share International, but he also kind of made a prediction for me to give to you. Okay, so you listening? I saw Maitreya on the streets of Marietta some time ago, and it was right before his first television interview, but he said, and I quote, You'll see me on TV real soon.
Take action.
And we're going to change the world together. And it's going to happen.
Thanks for listening.
You're going to see him on TV real soon. And we're all going to change the world together. You have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.